Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yes, we did. Yeah. So now you'll be able to actually, kind of like relate to each other. Yeah. Funky Bible name. Yeah. Mm. Well, yeah. So, I mean, although we're, studying the Old Testament, we always reference the New Testament, so kind of like link the word together between the Old Testament and the New Testament. So you should be able to kind of like cross-check each other. That's the fun part of reading the Bible. So if you know it, it's fun. If you don't know it, it's boring. Yeah, we're getting there, one step at a time. We're getting there, right? So, yeah. Okay, so we covered up to chapter 17 last week, correct? And we're covering chapter 18. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the banana, right? All right. So it's good. So you will never forget about circumcision this time. All right. Okay. All right. Chapter 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great tree of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If you have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way. Now that you have come to your servant, very well," they answer. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said, "get 3 seth of fine flour and knead it and bake some bread." Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf and gave it to the servant, who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curd and milk and the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under the tree. "Where is your wife Sarah?" he asked them. "There, in the tent," he said. Then the Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already old and well advanced in year, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I am worn out and my master is old, will I have this pleasure?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, "I did not laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." Okay. Now, we're going to continue to study about the story in Abraham. Now, there was 3 men came to Abraham, and he was at the entrance, and he welcomed all these 3 men to his house and served him with food. But as we remember, when God appeared to Abraham in chapter 17, he said, I will make a covenant with you, then you will have a son. And, after they made all this covenant, Abraham knew that God promised him the more the seeds and more descendants. But when this 3 men showed up, and after Abraham served them, and one of the men said, well, I will return to you, sometime next year, and then Sarah will have a wife. Your wife Sarah will have a son. Now, question: did this man come back to Sarah? He said, I will surely return to you about this time next year. He promised that he will return to. But did he? Well, wherever in the Bible, did he come back? You don't know? So we're guessing that he probably came back? So you can turn the page if you want. Where? Yeah, but that means Sarah had a son. That's what it's talking about. My question is, did the man come back to Sarah? He said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. When you look at the scripture, there's no mention that this man ever came back to Sarah. We know for sure Sarah had a baby. Sarah had a son. So we know, you will have a son. So that promise has been fulfilled. But the first one, he said, I will surely come back to you sometime next year, around this time. But according to scriptures, there's no mention that he ever came back. At least the scripture does not talk about it. Okay, so we're gonna find out what that really means. So the man said, you were going to have a son next year, and she left. And then he said, well, why are you laughing? I said, I didn't laugh. Yes, you did. She surely did laugh. And when you think of it, when you look at chapter 17, verse 17, when God was making promise to Abraham, Abraham did exactly the same thing. Chapter 17, verse 17 says, Abraham fell face down, he left. Right? So both Abraham and Sarah both laugh at God's promise. What are you talking about? Me having a baby? No way. Right? Because Abraham was almost 99 years old. Sarah was 89 years old. No way that I'm going to have a baby. So neither of them believed. So then, move on, verse 16 from chapter 18. When the man got up to leave, they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as I cried out that he has reached me. If not, I will know. The man turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there is 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of filthy righteous people in it? 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not be judge all the earth to right? The Lord said, If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of the 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, For the sake of 40 I will not do it. Then he said, May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, Now that I have been so bold to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, For the sake of 20 I will not destroy it. Then he said, May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, For the sake of 10 I will not destroy it. Then the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham. He left, and Abraham returned home. It's annoying? Yeah. So, think about this. You know all this story. It's not surprising at all. But what is Abraham trying to say? What is Abraham trying to say? Okay. When you think of it, okay, I want you to actually put yourself in his shoes. If you start to think from, someone who has no relationship with him, and you won't be able to understand what he's trying to do. I need you to put yourself in his shoes. As I always is saying, you need to jump into the Bible and understand what he's trying to say. All right. Right. So Abraham met 3 men at the gate, right? And Abraham served them, and they ate with them. And then he promised that he's going to have a child sometime next year. And then some men left. There's one man standing there. And Abraham is speaking to that man. And does Abraham know where they went? So Abraham knows they went to Sodom and Gomorrah. And then something's going to happen in Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? So who's living in Sodom and Gomorrah? Who's living in Sodom and Gomorrah at the time? Lot and his family. Right? So if the whole city is destroyed, he knows that his nephew, Lot, and his family will be destroyed with them. Right? So what is Abraham is trying to say? What Abraham is trying to say is, he wants to say, can you spare my nephew and his family? But he just can't say that. Abraham just can't say that. Just can you spare just my family, but you can destroy the rest? You know what I'm saying? So he's indirectly saying, what if there's a 50? He's starting from 50, random number, 50, 45, 40, 30, and 20. And then where does he stop? 10, right? It's a very close number. He's very close to the number of Lot's family, right? But he just can't go any lower because it's very obvious that if you go down further, right? It's can you spare my family? But it's okay for you to just destroy the rest of it. It's okay. But he wanted to say, can you spare my family, my Lot and my Lot's family? Can you do that? That's what he really want to say. Now, the question is, who are these 3 men? Who are they? Now let's turn to yeah, go ahead. Mhm. Okay. Okay. So all right, I asked, so you can just answer whatever you think the answer is. So turn to chapter 19, verse 1. The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening. All right, so Abraham met 3 men, right? And 2 went to Sodom and Gomorrah. And according to the scripture, those two men who went to Sodom and Gomorrah, who are they? They're angels. Right? They're angels. So out of those 3 men Abraham met, 2 of them went to the Sodom and Gomorrah, and those 2 men who went to Sodom and Gomorrah, they are the angels. I mentioned to you many times in the past that angels don't have a wings and, they don't have that stuff that we imagine. But they're always shown up as a man, right? And they ate the food. Whatever that Abraham gave him, they all ate it. Right? They ate the calf, right? And the milk, whatever the food that they served, they ate it. So 3 men, 2 of them went to the Sodom and Gomorrah, and who is the rest, the last one? There's the question. Who is this man? Exactly. And then he just keeps saying, so that's why he just keeps saying the Lord, right? So now, how do we know this is Jesus, is the question. So how do we know? Now, I want you to turn to John. John chapter 8. We're going to read from verse 48. So when you look at John chapter 8, he talks about the testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay? And then we're going to read from verse 48. The Jews answered him, "Aren't we right in saying that you are a Samaritan and demon-possessed? I am not possessed by a demon," said Jesus. "But I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. I am not seeking glory for myself, but there is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. I tell you the truth. If anyone keeps my word, he will never see death." At this, the Jews exclaimed, "Now we know that you are demon-possessed. Abraham died, and so did the prophets. Yet you say that if anyone keeps your word, he will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and so did the prophet. Who do you think you are?" Jesus replied, "If I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Though you do not know him, I know him. If I said I did not, I would be a liar like you, but I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad." Right? And he saw me and he was glad in it when he saw me. And they're saying, like, what are you talking about? You look like a... So, to continue on, the verse 57 said, "You're not yet 50 years old." The Jew said to him, "You have seen Abraham?" Well, and I tell you the truth. And Jesus answered, "Before Abraham was born, I am." At this, they picked up stone to stone him, but Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. Because they're like, "You don't even look like 50 years old. You have seen our father Abraham?" I said, "Yes, I have. I was before him." Right? Well, they didn't understand because they could not understand this. Like, what do you mean? But Jesus saw him and Abraham saw him. When? This. Chapter 19. So that's why, just like what Rick said, that's why he fell, his face down, so low. But imagine, We, huh? Okay, go ahead. He himself testifying that Abraham saw me and he was glad in it when he saw me. When did Jesus see him? In chapter 19. Genesis chapter that we just read. Chapter 18. Okay, let's come back. Let's come back to chapter 18 again. Yeah. So, chapter 18, verse 17. Then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do?" Right? So he's talking to Abraham. Right now, he's just talking to himself. Yes. Then he's gonna tell Abraham now, right? What? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him. Who's chosen him? I chosen him. Right? So he's the one who chose Abraham, which is God. Now, where is it? I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. And then the Lord said, "Outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is a great and dear sin, so grievous. So I will go down and see if they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." And then man turned away and went toward Sodom. So these two angels went to Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Right? Now he's talking to this God, the Lord. And that's why he's asking, like, can you keep, will you destroy if there's a 50 righteous men with wicked men? No, I will spare it. Do you understand? Is that clear to you, or still confused? You get it now? Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Correct. So now go back to when the man, which was the Lord speaking to Abraham, and said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year. The Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Right? But I told you that he never returned to Sarah. Right? But he promised, you will have a son. And who's that son? That's Isaac. What does Isaac represent? Isaac symbolized what? Jesus Christ, who was offered as a sacrifice by the Abraham. So when he said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, he was referring to the Isaac. But at the same time, there's a double prophecy that I will come back to you. I will come back to you. Through your line, I will come back to you. Okay? We're reading from chapter 8, verse 10 and 14. Both said the same thing. Right? So he was referring to Isaac, but at the same time there's a double prophecy that I will come back to you. Because Jesus comes through the Abraham's line, and I will come back to you. Yeah, verse 10 and 14, both of them the same thing. He said next year, what did he say? I will surely return to you about this time next year, and you will have a son. That is Isaac. Right? Next year, Sarah will have a son. That'll be Isaac. And Isaac is representing Jesus Christ. Because Abraham, later on, he gave Isaac as a sacrifice, burnt offering. And we'll get to it soon. And why this is all related. And we're getting there. We're just passing chapter 18, so we'll get there. Okay. So Abraham wanted to say, I want to spare my nephew. I don't want you to destroy it. So, 2 angels went to Sodom and Gomorrah. So, chapter 19, 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet him and bowed down with his face to the ground. My Lord. Now, this time you see there's actually a lowercase Lord. He said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered. We will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them. Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind them and said, No, my friend, don't do these wicked things. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protections of my roof. Get out of our way, they replied, and they said, This fellow came here as an alien, and now he wants to play the judge. We will treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the man inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, Do you have anyone else here, son-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-law, who were pledged to marry to his daughter. He said, Hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his son-in-law thought he was joking. When the coming of dawn, the angel urged Lot, saying, Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. When he hesitated, the man grasped his hand and the hands of his wife, and and of his 2 daughters, and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lord, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountain. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here is a town near enough to run to it, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to him, "Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." And that is why the town was called Zoar. By the time Lot reached the Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens, though he overthrew those city and the entire plain, including all those living in the city, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land like smoke from the furnace. So when God destroyed the city of the plain, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the city where Lot had lived. Now, when you look at the last verse, in verse 29, look carefully. So, when God destroyed the city of the plain, he remembered. Who remembered? God remembered. Remember what? Abraham. He remembered Abraham. What did he remember about Abraham? Exactly. He knew what he was asking, although he didn't say. Right? He knew what he was asking. Yeah. So he knew it, but he didn't say anything. It's like, I know that you want to spare your nephew. I understand. Correct. God knew what he's trying to say. Yeah. So the thing is, now you have to understand, because if you don't jump into the Bible and if you don't put yourself in his shoes, you don't understand why he's saying what he's saying and what he's trying to do. But if you jump into his situations and if you think of it as your family, you would do the same thing. You will do more than what he did, wouldn't you? If you're trying to save your brothers and sisters, and wouldn't you do the same thing? I would do it. Yeah. So. Yeah, but important. Yeah. So, yeah. So when you look at verse 16, it hinted here as well. Verse 16 says, "For the Lord was merciful to them." To whom? Lot and his family. Right? Because of Abraham. So when you look at Lot, he's kind of like, half-righteous person. He's really not righteous. If he was righteous, he would not actually go to Sodom and Gomorrah. When Abraham gave him a chance, that where do you want to go? If you go to east, I'll go to west, and if you go to west, then I go to east. And so Abraham gave the opportunity to his nephew, where do you want to go? I will go opposite way. And if you're really a humble person, and you would say, "Uncle, you choose first. I'll go wherever you choose, and then I'll go opposite." But when Abraham asked Lot, you choose, and then he didn't even hesitate, like, all right, let me look. Ta-da! Oh, I like that. I'm going. I don't care where you go. You go backward. I'll go over there. Right? Lot's perspective, he chose what he think it is the best for him. Right? He wasn't really thinking of Abraham. He was thinking of himself. He was very selfish. He only looked what he liked. So at the time when he looked at Sodom and Gomorrah, it was the best for him. And he didn't care about his uncle. But when you think of it, uncle really took care of him. Didn't he? Abraham truly took care of Lot. Before the 5 king came down and destroyed the Sodom and Gomorrah, and then when the whole family was, brought as captive, and Abraham brought his 318 people with him, and then chased after the Damascus and brought them down, didn't he? So Abraham truly took care of his nephew Lot, but Lot didn't care about his uncle. So Lot was not a righteous person. If he was a righteous person, he would not do that. But at the same time, when he served the 2 guests, right? So where did he see the 2 angels? At the gateway of the city, right? At the gateway of the city. You may think of it as, so what? But this has a significance when he was at the gateway of the city. What it means is that if he was at the gateway, it means he was the elder of that city. And how do we know? In the ancient days, when people are at the gateway, they're the elders. So when you actually look at Proverbs chapter 31, verse 23. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. So usually, elders at the gate of the city and give the judge and give, what it's right from wrong. So that's where most of the city people meet their elders, at the city gate. So when Lot was meeting those men at the city gate, that means he was the elder of that city. And he brought the guest over to his house. And I am sure Lot had learned from Abraham that Abraham, when he was living with Abraham, he saw that Abraham was serving the guest. So he learned. So that's why he brought the guest over to his house. So as he was serving, and the people from that city, young and old, came. And their interest was, bring those guests out. And those 2 angels are what? Are they a woman or are they a man? They're man, right? Appearance was man. So they're saying, bring them out. We want to have a sex with them. It's a fresh, right? So never seen them before. It's a new people. It's a fresh meat. So let's bring them out. So their interest was homosexual interest. That's all they care about. And then Lot brought his daughters out. And he said, I'm going to bring my daughters out. They don't know man. I'm going to throw out my daughters. You can do whatever you want. But don't harm my guest. And how would you actually, understand this situation? Yeah, but the thing is, Lot had two daughters. And then those two daughters about to get married. They had a son-in-law. They're about to get married, right? So Lot knew that his daughter is going to get married soon. But letting these two daughters out and do whatever you want? I mean, are you insane? If you're a normal person, I mean, I want you to think about it. You being, of course, you're not, parents yet, but eventually you will become a parent and you will have your own child. Someone is breaking into your house and they say, like, you're giving your two daughters out to them. They say, well, I don't know about my daughters. You can do whatever you want, my daughters, but, like, don't touch me. So, like, it's unimaginable, right? Yeah. So, but one thing that you have to understand: the ancient, the custom, especially in the Middle East, the custom is this. Okay, it has a big significance to the people of the Middle East that when the guest comes over under their umbrella, under their house, you give your life to protect the guest. So there's a big difference between the guest is standing outside or outside your house versus inside your house. Once the guest to come inside your house, you give a full protection for that guest. You can give your life to protect that guest. That is a sort of, ancient Middle East custom. So it's a little bit different than how we understand in this Western society. So I want you to keep that in mind as well. But even with that, giving his daughters out for this, this people is just unimaginable. But so that kind of shows that Lot was not a fully righteous person. He was like half righteous person. So when he was living with Abraham, he learned a lot from Abraham. But at the same time, when he actually went to Sodom and Gomorrah and was living there, he was a sort of like blended into them. So there's a difference between, later on we're going to learn about Joseph. Joseph was sold as a slavery and went to the Egypt, right? And he's a faith. No matter what other people say, he kept his faith with the Lord. He did not blend with the Egyptians. But Lot, when he went to Sodom and Gomorrah, he was not influencing them, but he was influenced by them. You understand? So God is making this particular, story as an example. Whoever trying to live by their own pleasure, eventually you will be destroyed. But if there is one righteous man, I will save this. But was there any righteous man in the city? No, there wasn't. Correct. But when you turn to Jeremiah, Jeremiah chapter 5. The Jeremiah, you have to understand when this book was written. Okay? The book Jeremiah was written right before the fall of the Judah. So Israel was already destroyed and gone. Now, it was about the time that Judah was going to be destroyed by the Babylon. So he's actually crying out to the Lord, and Lord, please save our people. And when he was praying, this is how God responded to Jeremiah, chapter 5. Chapter 5, we're going to read from verse 1. Go up and down the street of Jerusalem. Look around and consider. Search through her squares. If you can find but one person who deals honestly and seek the truth, I will forgive the city. Although they say, as surely as the Lord lives, still they are swearing falsely. O Lord, do not your eyes look for truth? You struck them, but they felt no pain. You crushed them, but they refused corrections. They made their face harder than stone and refused to repent. So, God is saying to Jeremiah, I want you to go down the street and try to find one righteous man. If you find one righteous man, I will save the city. But you won't find it. And Jeremiah could not find one. That's why Judah was destroyed. But Jesus said something interesting. John chapter 16. John chapter 16. We're going to read from verse 5. Now I am going to him who sent me, yet none of you asked me, where are you going? Because I have said these things, you are filled with grief. But I will tell you the truth. It is for your good that I am going away. Unless I go away, the counselor will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. When he comes, he will convict the world of guilt in regard to sin, righteousness, and judgment. In regard to sin, because the men do not believe in me. In regard to righteousness, because I am going to the Father, where you can see me no longer. And in regard to judgment, because the prince of this world now stands condemned. Now, can someone explain to me what this means? So when the counselor comes, he will convict the world. Right? When he comes, he will convict the world of guilt in regard to sin and righteous. So when he comes, he's going to judge for the three things. What is that? He will convict the world of guilt in regards to sin and righteousness and judgment. So there are three things: sin, righteousness, and judgment. Okay, so the first thing, in regards to sin, because men do not believe in me. So the sin, the definition of a sin is people do not believe in Jesus Christ. That's what the Bible calls it as a sin. It's not what you did wrong, like, you raped someone or you steal someone, you lie someone. That's not what Bible defines as a sin. The sin is that you do not believe in Jesus Christ, which nobody think that is a sin. Right? But that's how Bible defines it. Sin is you do not believe in me. In regard to righteousness, because I am going to the Father, where you can see me no longer. What does this mean? What does this mean? What do you mean in regards to righteousness? I am going to the Father where you can see me no longer. Does it make sense to you? Okay, you're very close. You're very close, but let me just kind of like clarify. So as you pointed out, Jesus Christ is the righteousness. There's only one righteousness in this world. But he's saying, I am going away. So you will see me no longer. So which means there will be no righteousness in this world. Because I am the only righteousness, and I'm going to the Father, you will see me no longer. Which means there is no righteousness in this world after I left. Understand? But when I come back, when you believe in me, when you receive the Holy Spirit, I will anoint you as a righteous. You're not righteous, you're still sinner, but I will call you as a righteous. Because nobody is righteous. Jesus Christ is the only righteous. And we are not righteous either after we receive the Holy Spirit. But God calls us to be righteous. Understand? Yes. So, therefore, come back. So he said, Abraham said, what if there's a 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, and 10? You're not going to find them. There isn't any righteous. That's what he said to Jeremiah. If you can find one, I will spare this city, but you won't find it. Right? So no one is righteous in this world. So all this city will be destroyed. Right? But because of Abraham, God remembered him. Be merciful and saved Lot and his family. So, you remember in New Testament when he said to the prison guard, believe in Jesus Christ, then you and your family will be saved. Right? So it's not because of Lot was righteous. Because of Abraham, they were spared. Because of Jesus Christ, we are spared. Not because we're righteous. Right? So when you look at 2 Peter, chapter 2, we're going to read from verse 1. But there were also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the sovereign Lord who brought them, bring swift destructions on themselves. Many will follow their shameful ways and will bring the way of truth into dispute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with stories when they have made up. Their condemnations has long been hanging over them, and their destructions has not been sleeping. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but he sent them to hell, putting them into gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment, if they did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness, and 7 others, if he condemned the city of Sodom and Gomorrah by burning them to ashes and made them examples of what is going to happen to the ungodly, and if he rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the filthy lives of lawless men, for the righteous man living among them day after day was tormented in his righteous soul by his lawless deeds he saw and heard. If this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue godly people from trial, and to hold unrighteous for the day of judgment. So this is referencing two things. One is about the Noah and his family, and also talks about the Lot and his family as well. So this is the examples of what will happen. So at the end of Revelations, what happened is, at the end of chapter 20, Revelation chapter 20, verse 13 through 15, it says, "The sea gave up and dead and were in it, and death and the Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what he had done, and death and Hades and thrown into the lake of fire." The lake of fire is the second death. If anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire, which is exactly the same story as the one that we're reading about the Sodom and Gomorrah. That is exactly samples of what will happen in the future. All right, so his family went to Zoar, right? In verse 23, coming back to Genesis chapter 19, we're going to read from verse 23. "By the time Lot reached the Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Though he overthrew those cities and entire plain, including all those living in the city, and also the vegetation in the land, but Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt." So, remember, when Lot was looking out the city, when Abraham, his uncle, said, "When you actually, decide to go to east, and I'll go to west, and if you decide to go to west, I'll go to east." But when he looked, he liked the Sodom and Gomorrah at the same time. So this goes back to the same thing what I said in the Genesis chapter 2, or was it chapter 2 or 3? When serpent came to the woman and said, "Did God tell you not to eat this fruit?" And then when she said, "No, but he said you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch them or you will die." And then when she looked, and what happened? When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desire for gaining wisdom, so she took it. So what's important is, what you look determines what kind of person you will be. Important. Abraham only looked at God's face. That's all he searched for. That's all he looked. On the other hand, Lot, what he saw was what he brings the pleasure to him, is what he saw. He wasn't looking for God's face. So what you see determines who you are. I don't care what kind of person you are, whether you're righteous or not righteous, or you're holy or unholy, I don't care. What you see will determine who you are. That's exactly what happened to Lot. So be careful what you watch. Important. What movie you watch, what TV you watch, depending on what you watch, you will be following that way. So if you meditate God's word more, and if you seek God's way, you will become more like Jesus. But if you do other way, then you will become more like the people outside of this world. And Lot turned back. Why did she turn back? Exactly. Whatever she left behind, she was attached to it. Oh, the stuff that I left it there. Right? My bag, my shoes. Right? That's why she was attached to it. the life and the wealth that she had. She had to leave it behind. That's important. When God calls, you can't look back. You got to go. Verse 30, Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. One day the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man around here to lie with us, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine, and then lie with him, and preserve our family line through our father." That night they got their father to drink wine, and older daughter went in and lay with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I lay with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and lie with them so you can preserve our family line through our father." So they got their father to drink wine and that night also, and the younger daughter went and lay with them. Again he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughter became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son and named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabite of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ammi. He is father of Ammonites of today. Well, his family is just messed up. Right? Whole family is messed up. The father is messed up. The daughters are messed up. Its entire family is messed up. Isn't it? Why? Why? Because that's what they saw in the city where they were living. That's all they saw. Right. That's the kind of life there were people in Sodom and Gomorrah was living. It's just normal to them. That's part of their life. And at the same time, for them, they thought that God destroyed the whole city, not only the city, but the entire earth. Because they saw the entire city was completely destroyed. And, fire was coming down, and then the whole entire city was completely crumbled. They thought, oh my God, we're the only one who left here in this world. Now, where am I going to find another man? So we have to preserve our family. So what can we do? There's only one man here. So we have to do whatever it takes to just to have preserve our family. That was another reason. But when they had a child, obviously their child is a Moabite and Ammonite. And who are they? They're the one who persecutes the Israelites, which is the sons of Isaac. So think about it. Who is the father of Lot? Obviously, he was, Abraham's brother, right? Older brother. What's his name? Haran. Right? Haran, which was the first brother, right? He was the oldest one. But what is the name meaning Haran. The meaning of Haran is burned. Yeah, burned. And then do you know how Haran died? He was burned. You know, I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you. No. Okay, so this is a story. Do you see my screen? Okay, so here's a story of the book of Jubilees, all right? So I want you to read from, I don't need to read the whole thing, so I want you to read from verse 1, and I want you to read up to 13. No, just read it. You don't have to read aloud. Just read from verse 1 through 13. Actually, not for 13, 14, sorry. It's taking a long time, huh? So what happened to Haran? Correct. And his name is burned, and he was burned and died. And where did his father take his family to? Where did he settled? Haran. So when you actually go to chapter 11, so verse 27 and on, this is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Elad. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth. Abraham and Nahor both married. The name of Abraham, wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren. She had no children. Terah took his son Abraham, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, Sarai, the wife of his son Abraham. Together they set out to Ur of the Chaldean to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. So, Lot's father, his name was Haran, name was burned, and he was burned and died. And his son, Lot, went down with Abraham, and he went to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And then what he saw was burn down the city. Of course, he was saved and spared because of Abraham. So the whole family was burned down. So let's come back. There's more story to tell. So come back to chapter 20. Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed at Gerar, and there Abraham said to his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. Wait a second. How old is she now? How old is she? How old is she? She was what? Abraham had his son Isaac when he was at 100, right? So Abraham and Sarah, they are 10 years apart. What do you... How did that calculation go about? Okay. Abraham was at 100 when he had his son Isaac. And then his wife, Sarah, was 10 years apart. And so Sarah was what? 90 years old. And they went to the city, the Gerar, and then the king, Abimelech, took Sarah. Because why do you think the king took his Sarah? She was beautiful. At what age? 99 years old. I mean, 90 years old. So, verse 21, you will have this Sarah will have the Sarah, chapter 21, you will have the Isaac coming, right? When she was 89, the Lord came to him and said, "You will have a son. You know, when I come back to you next year around, you will have a son," right? And she had Isaac when she was 90, right? So it's between 89 and 90 right now, right? No, that was a different one. That's when they went to the Egypt. This is second time. It's not Egypt anymore. He went to the Gerar. No. I'm talking about chapter 20 right now. Okay, so he went to the Gerar. The king of Gerar, Abimelech, took her, and when she was somewhere between 89 and 90, and she must be really, really pretty. Definitely not. But remember, how long did Sarah live? When did she die? When you look at chapter 23, it will tell you. She lived until 127. And then, of course, she was getting old. And then, I'm sure she was pregnant as well by this time. Right? Because she's already pregnant. Right? Because she's going to have Isaac soon. And then Abraham sold his wife. And probably Abraham would say, like, I don't know about you, but God made a promise with me, so I have to live. I don't know about you, but God made a promise to me, so I gotta have. Many of the people think that, Sarah and Abraham was young, but when you look at the actual age, they're very old. They're very old. Yeah. So, the Gerar is actually old days of Philistine. So they are Philistine. And then he actually gave his wife to Abimelech. And then verse 3, but God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, you are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is married woman. God is very straightforward, like, you're dead. Instead of Abraham saying to his, the king, you're dead, God is actually telling Abimelech and said, you're dead, man. So sometimes you have to watch out, man. The man can't sell their wife off like easily like this, And verse 4, now Abimelech had not gone near her. So he said, Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And didn't she also say, he is my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't go near her. I didn't touch her. No. And then verse 6, then God said to him in a dream, yes, I know you did this with a clean conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. This is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all yours will die. Early next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham in and said, what have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what was your reason for doing this? Abraham replied, I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father's, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. So, he didn't lie. He just, only revealed the half of the truth. he only revealed the half of a... So wait, I didn't lie. My hands are clean. I didn't lie. Yeah. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, this is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere you go, say to me, he is my brother. Listen to what he's saying. This is how you show you love me. Don't say that I'm your husband. Just say I'm your brother. All right? That's how you show you love to me. Shh. Don't say anything. I'm your brother. Okay? So then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, my land is before you. Live wherever you like. To Sarah he said, I am giving your brother 1,000 shekel of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you, and you are completely vindicated. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech his wife and his slave girls, so they could have children again. For the Lord had closed up every womb in Abimelech's household because of Abimelech's wife, Abraham's wife Sarah. So, I want you to think about this, as I mentioned last week. When we think of Abraham, we think of what? He's a man of a faith, right? Right? He's the man of a blessing. We think of all these good things. But when you actually look at it carefully, it's not really. It's not really, right? But I want you to think about it. When you actually compare, reflect yourself against him, are you much different from Abraham in your life? We're not really. Although we have met the Lord and we confess that Jesus Christ is my Lord, but when you actually look at yourself, when you look, inside of yourself, you're not much different from Abraham. What does it really show is our weakness. We're very fragile. Although we have a faith, we're all fragile. Although we claim ourselves like, oh, we're faithful, and, I believe in God, and I know God will protect me, I know God would always there for me, but when the time comes, you will do the same thing. We are all fragile. So God is showing that, no matter what you claim yourself to be, you are who you are. How did Abraham confess that to the Lord before? When you look back, chapter 18, verse 27, listen to what Abraham is saying to the Lord. Chapter 18, verse 27, Then Abraham spoke up again, Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes. Does he know who he is? He knows who he is. Lord, I'm nobody. I'm dust. I'm ashes. No matter what I try to do right, I know I never be righteous. I'm nobody. So that's why I need you, Lord. You need to guard me. I'm fragile. I know if you don't hold me, I'm gonna do such stupid things all over the place. I'm going to lie here, there. I'm going to lie over there. I'm going to do all this stupid things before you. You know me. That's who I am. This is why you need to protect me and hold me so that I don't do this. This is why I mentioned to you before that God spreads the people out. Why? Because when we have nothing to really rely on, we rely on God. God help me. So it shows all the weakness of Abraham as well. Bible does not cover up for Abraham. It does not put a cosmetic over the story. And shows as it is. He's vulnerable, he's fragile, he's weak. He shows all this just like we are. Now, chapter 21. Hang on one second. So we turn to chapter 21. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, and he has said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God has promised him. Remember, What he's saying is Abraham in his old age. So even Bible tells that Abraham is old. And you heard, when God said, you will have a son next year, then she was laughing. Why? I'm old. Right? She even confessed that I'm old. So we know that she was old. But here's the things that you need to pay attention. When you look at verse 1 and 2, there's a couple of words that are very important here. And the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. So whatever God promised, he fulfills it. And verse 2 said at the end, at the very time God had promised him. He did exactly what he promised. This is the key word. Remember I mentioned about the prayer? When you pray, rather than praying for whatever you want to pray, you have to hold on to the promise God made. When you hold on to that word, that promise God made, it will be fulfilled and it will be answered. Because God is the one who promised and he fulfills that promise. But if you pray for the things that God never promised you, well, maybe answered, maybe not answered. Verse 3. Abraham gave the name Isaac. Isaac means laugh. To the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 years old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. This is the key word. Now you understand why Isaac was the first one who was properly circumcised? Because no one, when Abraham was circumcised and when Ishmael was circumcised and his household was circumcised, they were not circumcised by the rule of God. When a boy was born, on the 8th day, circumcise the boy. Why? Because this is a reference of Jesus Christ, death and resurrection. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. And she added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, yet I have borne him a son in his old age. The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had borne to Abraham was mocking, and she said to Abraham, get rid of the slave woman and her son, for the slave woman's sons will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son, but God said to him, do not be so distressed about the boy and your maidservant. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. So this verse is very important. Because it is through Isaac that your offspring, when you look at the offspring, that is a seed, it is a singular form. It's not plural form. It's not the offsprings. It's offspring. It is a seed. What is that seed? That seed is actually the Jesus Christ. So when you turn to Galatians, when you look at the Galatians chapter 3, verse 15 and on. Galatians chapter 3, verse 15 and on. Brothers, let me take an example from everyday life, just as no one can set aside or add to human covenant that has been duly established. So it is in this case, the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. The scripture does not say, and to seeds, meaning many people, but and to your seed, meaning one person, who is Christ. Right? Coming back to verse 13 from Genesis chapter 21. I will make the son of the maidservant into a nation also, because he is your offspring. Early the next morning Abraham took some food and skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulder and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down nearby, about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die. And as she sat there nearby, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hands, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with waters and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. Now, this prophecy was done before, remember? When you go back to Genesis chapter 16, verse 12, we talked about this one before, remember? What did he say? Right. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone hands against him, and he will live in hostility towards all his brother. And he became what? Archer. So what does the archer do? Killing. So, verse 22, at this time Abimelech and Pichol, the commander of his force, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children of my descendants. Or show to me and the country where you are living as an alien the same kindness I have shown to you. Abraham said, I swear it. The Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servant had seized. But Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about it only today. So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 lambs from the flock, and Abimelech asked Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 lambs you have set apart by themselves? He replied, accept these 7 lambs from my hands as a witness that I dug this well. So that place was called Beersheba, because the 2 men swore an oath there. After the treaty he had been at Beersheba, Abimelech and Pichol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called upon the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. So from here, you hear about the history of Abimelech, right? So Abimelech came with his the commander of the chief of commander, Pichol. When he came to Abraham, what did he say? What did he say? Yeah. Now, I want you to think about it for a moment. Abimelech does not know God, right? So what is he saying? What did he see? Abimelech does not know about God. But he came to Abraham and he said, God is with you in everything you do. Abraham did not say to people and say, God is with me. But through his life, he shown to the people around him that demonstrate through his life that God is with him. Without saying anything, his life was a showing that God was with him. Although Abimelech and Pichol does not know God, but they clearly saw that God was with him. Everything what they do. This has to be our life. Let me ask you this. If you don't tell other people that you're Christians, do they know that you're a Christian? No, you don't have to answer that. The thing is, people don't know I'm a Christian because it doesn't show. I don't have that fragrance of a Jesus Christ. People does not tell. Even demon can tell whether I'm a Christian or not. Our life, what we say, what we do, has to appear that God is with us. When our life shows, then people will come to us. So, when you look at 1 Peter chapter 2, First Peter chapter 2, verse 11 and 12. Dear friends, I urge you as alien and stranger in the world to abstain from sinful desire, which war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that, though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day He visits us. This was the life that Abraham was living. Yeah. All right, so up to here for today, and chapter 22 is a very important chapter, so we're not going to go any further this today. So up to this. Now, for the things that we cover, do you have any question? Go ahead. Well. All right. Yeah. What are you talking about? Do I have a wings? I never sold my wife. All right. Yeah. Ricky, what's your question? Why do you start with the sighing first? All right, what was the question? Not because he was the sisters and or the wife, because Abimelech did not know Sarah was wife of Abraham. So Abimelech liked her because she seemed to be very beautiful. So he took her in as probably as a... Yeah, he wanted her. Correct. Because now she is already pregnant to have Isaac, which is the promised son. Right? Well, not... Yeah, go ahead. No, God was not fine with it when he was in Egypt, right? When Pharaoh was taking her, right? God was not happy either. So he sent the plague. The same story, right? Back then, she was not pregnant. But God was not going to let her become another, to have the Sarah to be wife of another man. God already has a plan for Abraham and Sarah. When you actually look at the story, when you actually interesting here, actually when you turn to chapter 26. Yeah, Genesis. When you look at chapter 26, this is the story of Isaac. We're going to read from verse 1. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time. That Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in the land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all this land, and will confirm the oath I will swear to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. Will give them in all this lands, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirement, my commands, my decrees, and my law, so Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the man of the place asked him about his wife, he said, 'She is my sister.' Because he was afraid to say, 'She is my wife,' he thought, 'the man of his place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful.' When Isaac had been there for a long time. Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, "She is really your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?" Isaac answered him, "Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her." Then Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilty upon us." So Abimelech gave order to all the people, anyone who molest of the man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So Isaac did the exactly same thing, just copying his father, exactly. But even with that, God protected him as well. So it's not about, God is okay with another, woman. So God wanted to actually keep Abraham and Abraham and Sarah to be one part. Because the promised son will come out from Abraham, Isaac. So when you look at it, Ishmael was not the promised son. Right? So that's why when you actually look at Galatians chapter 4, I'll show you something here. Galatians chapter 4. We're going to read from verse 21 and on. "Tell me, you who want to be under the law, are you not aware of what the law says? For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons, one by the slave woman and the other by the free woman. His son by the slave woman was born in the ordinary way, but his son by the free woman was born as a result of a promise. These things may be taken figuratively, for the women represent 2 covenants. One covenant is from Mount Sinai, but bears children who are to be slaves. This is Hagar. Now Hagar stands from Mount Sinai in Arabia and correspond to the present city of Jerusalem, because she is a slavery with her children, but the Jerusalem is the above is free, and she is our mother. For it is written, Be bold, O barren woman, who is bare no children, break forth and cry aloud, you who have no labor pains, because more are the children of desolate woman than of her who has the husband. Now you brothers, like Isaac and children of promise, as that at that time the son born in the ordinary way persecuted the son born by the power of the Spirit, it is the same now. But what does the Scripture say? Get rid of the slave woman and her son, for the slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with the free woman's son. Therefore, brothers, we are not children of the slave woman, but of the free woman. This is the symbolism between Ishmael and Isaac. The slavery woman, the Hagar, as a son, Ishmael, and Sarah had a promised son, Isaac. But you're saying, the Scripture is saying, Hagar, which is the slave woman, will persecute the promised one. So didn't the God said, or didn't Abraham said, Sarah said, get rid of the, slavery woman and his son? That's what he's referring to. There's only one promised son, Isaac. They will never share their inheritance with Ishmael's. This is why today Israelites don't want to share their inheritance with other Middle Eastern countries. Does that make sense? It's not just the Palestinian, but Egyptians and all the Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, because what do they claim? All this, Muslims, right? They call themselves as sons of Ishmaels. And Jewish are the sons of Isaac. But you have to understand, the Muslim people, the Quran that they read, Quran came from, split off from Hebrews Bible. So there is story of the things that we read, but their story is a little bit different. They claim that Ishmael was the promised son, not Isaac. That's what they claim. And then this is why the slavery woman will persecute the promised one, this is why today still all the Middle Eastern countries been persecuting Israel, and Israel is fighting back. Their Quran is a little bit modified. That's what I'm saying. Their Quran has been modified. Because they don't read our Bible. They don't read this Torah. They read Quran. Right? Quran was written by Muhammad. Right? He wrote all that as the God told him to write. So the context is a little bit different than our Bible. And that's what they believe. So does that kind of answer your question? Okay. Well, hopefully I always try to answer the questions that you guys ask. And hopefully you will always find something new and interesting in the Bible. The story that we're studying is not something new to you guys. You guys know all the stories already. But as you get to share the words, you realize that a lot of things you missed. So this is why I'm kind of showing you the things that you missed, and I'm just kind of putting it all together for you. Because you don't know where other pieces are in the Bible. You only see one part of the Bible. But you have to be able to actually see other parts of the Bible and put it all together. That's how you actually put all the puzzles together to see the big picture of what this Bible is about. So although we're studying Genesis, but every time I talk about the context in the Bible or the Genesis, I always reference in the New Testament to see the other parts of the Bible, right? So you kind of matches them together. Yeah. And it's all being fulfilled. Any other question? No? Okay.